Alright, so we are learning how to write all of these equations in slope-intercept form, okay? But first, before we get started, let's review. Somebody raise your hand and tell me what slope-intercept form is. Casey. Perfect. Y equals mx plus b. And what does that m stand for? Slope. And what about that b? Y-intercept. Y-intercept. Good. Okay. So y equals mx plus b is slope-intercept form. So we're going to use all of these examples to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So this first one's a little bit of a review. We learned how to do this on, what was it, Tuesday, I believe? Whoops, wrong way. So I'm given a slope and a y-intercept. I want to use that to write it in slope-intercept form. Yes, Drew. Alright, so my slope is 3 and my y-intercept is 5. So all I need to do there is just plug it into that formula. So y equals mx plus b. What is my m? 3. So y equals 3x. And then my b is 5. So plus 5. Okay. So that's my equation in slope-intercept form. That's all we're doing there. Okay. Number 2 is from a graph. So last night we graphed these equations. So we were given the equation and we had to graph it on the coordinate plane. We're going to do it backwards here. We're given the graph and then we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So when I'm given the equation, the first thing that I need to do to graph that equation is what? What's my first step? Plot my y-intercept, okay? So if you look at this graph right here, what is my y-intercept, my b? Gabby? Negative 1. So my y-intercept is negative 1. And then my second step when I'm graphing it is to go from that point with my slope to find the next one, right? So if I want to find my slope here, I'm going to look at that line. So I plotted b equals negative 1 first. Then I'm going to go to the next point on that line, and I'm going to find how I got there. So which one do we want to go to? Over here or over here? Left or right? Left. This way? This way. Down here? Okay. So where is a point on that line that I know exactly what that point is? Casey? Positive 3, negative 3, right? So right here. So if I'm going from this point over here to this point, how did I get there? What was my slope? Down 3 and over 3. Down 3? Down 2. Because I started at negative 1. So I went down 2 and then to the right 3. So my slope is negative 2/3. Okay. So now that I know my b and my m, I can write an equation in slope-intercept form, right? Somebody want to raise their hand and tell me what you think it is? Andrew.
Y equals negative 2/3 x minus 1.
Good. Y equals negative 2/3 x minus 1. So all I'm doing there is plugging in my m and my b into slope-intercept formula. Okay. Questions on that way? Okay. What about if I'm given a slope and a point? So here they tell me that my slope is 1/2, and then I have the point 2,5 that line is going to pass through. Okay. So if I'm looking at the form y equals mx plus b, I'm going to rewrite it right here. Y equals mx plus b. I know what my m is, right? They told me that m is 1/2. So you think I can plug that in for m?
I think so.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and do that. So m is 1/2. All right, so if I look at this point 2, 5, that's x comma y, right? So my x is 2 and my y is 5. So I'm just going to plug in x and y into my slope-intercept form. So y equals, so 5, my y is 5. So 5 equals 1/2, and then I'm going to plug in my x. What was my x? 2. So that means I have 1/2 times 2. I don't know my b, so plus b. So now I have 5 equals 1/2 times 2 plus b. So let's do that multiplication. What is 1/2 times 2? 1. So that gives me 5 equals 1 plus b. Now I can solve for b, right? So how do I solve for b? Good. Subtract 1 from both sides. So I'm going to write it up here. That tells me that, what is b? 4. 4 equals b. Okay. So I'm given my slope. I already know that slope is 1/2. And then I found out that my y-intercept is b. So now I can write that into y-intercept form. So y equals mx. M is 1/2. So 1/2 x. And then b is 4. So my equation in slope-intercept form is y equals 1/2 x plus 4. Questions on any of that? We good? All right, so there we wrote an equation when we were given the slope and a point. Now we want to write an equation when all we're given is 2 points. So does anybody remember how you can find the slope? How you can find the slope when you're given 2 points? We did this last semester when we did that slope packet. Do anybody remember how? Okay, rise over run. What's that? Casey's got it. Good job. Change in y, so delta y, which was change in y's, over change in x. Okay? So remember, we did that by having a y2 and an x2 and a y2, x1 and a y2. x1, y1, x2, y2. Right. So this first point, I'm just going to go ahead and say this is x1 and this is y1. And then 3, 7, that's going to be x2, y2. Okay. So if we're finding the change in y's, that means we've got y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Remember that? Look familiar? Should. Alright, so now I'm just plugging in those numbers. So what did I say y2 is? 7. So 7 minus y1, 7 minus 5. And then x2 is 3 minus x1, which is 5. So that gives me 2 over negative 2. Remember, slope always needs to be in simplest form. So what is 2 divided by negative 2? 1 over negative 1, or just negative 1. So my slope is negative 1. Gabby?
I figured it out when I looked at it just and seeing that this was lower, 3, 7 was lower than 5, 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, like, in my head figured out how to get some 3, 7, 5, 5.
Yeah, you can do that. That's basically what we're doing. We're just writing it out. Yep. So m equals negative 1. So if we look at the example that we did before this one, remember I was given the slope and a point. And then what did I do? I plugged in m, x, and y into my slope-intercept form, right? So you think I can do the same thing for this example? I have my slope and I have a point, right? I just have 2 points in this case. So just choose either one of them. It doesn't matter which point you use. So you can make a note. Choose either point. Okay. I'm just going to choose the first one. 5, 5. So we're going to plug in my m, my x, and my y into slope-intercept form. All right. So again, I've got y equals mx plus b. So what is my y if I'm using this point right here? My y is 5. My m, my slope, is -1. My x is also 5. So that means I have -1 times, whoops, it's positive 5, -1 times 5. Do I know b? No, that's what I'm trying to find out. So I've got 5 equals -1 times 5 plus b. So then do that multiplication. So 5 equals -5 plus b. What do I do now? Good. Add 5 to both sides. So b equals 10. So b equals 10 and m equals 1. Remember, my goal here is to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So I can do that now, right? What do you think it's going to be? Good. Y equals -1x, or in this case, we can just say -x, right? Plus 10. And that is my final equation in slope-intercept form. Okay. Any questions on that? So first, you've got to find your slope here by finding your change in y's over your change in x's. And then you're just going to choose either one of those points and plug in your y, your m, your x, and your y. And then solve for b. Okay? Questions? Alright, so next example, what about if they're giving us our x's and our y's in a table? You think we can write an equation in slope-intercept form from that? Yeah, we can. So basically these are my ordered pairs, right? I've got 4, 14, 6, 20, 7, 23. So in this case I'm given 3 points. Up here I was given 2. So this is basically the same thing. You're just going to choose 2 of those points. And we're going to take the same steps that we did here. So this is in term x1 and y1, right? And then this could be x2, y2. Or you could choose these points. And so 620 would become x1, y1. And then 723 could be x2, y2. Okay? So you can choose any of those 2 points. Just remember that the highest point on that line is going to be your x2, y2. And then the lower point is going to be x1, y1. Alright, so let's find our slope. So remember, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then plug in those numbers. So y2 is 20. Y1 is 14. So 20 minus 14. Over x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is 4. So what's 20 minus 14? 6. And 6 minus 4? 2. Can I simplify that? Yep. So my slope is 3. So m equals 3. So what's my next step? Choose any point. So I can choose either one of these 3 points, and then I'm just going to plug x, y, and m into slope-intercept form. So which one do we want to use? 7 and 23? Okay. So We've got y equals mx plus b. So what is my y if I'm using this point right here? 23, isn't it? So y equals 23.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
You
back? Perfect. Go right ahead. Thank you. All right, so y equals 23. What does my m equal? 3. What is my x?
23. 7.
X. X is my 7. So 3 times 7. I don't know b. That's what I'm trying to find. All right. So 23 equals 3 times 7 plus b. Now I need to simplify. Let me zoom in a little bit. So I have 23 equals 21 plus b. So now I need to solve for b. Subtract 21 from both sides. And b is equal to what? 2. Alright, so my y-intercept is 2. My slope is 3. Now am I ready to write it in slope-intercept form? Yep. So let's do it. Y equals, good, 3x plus 2. There's my equation in slope-intercept form. Questions on that? So that example is very similar to the one we did before here. It was just given, our ordered pairs were given to us in a table form, and we had 3 to choose from instead of 2. Okay. But our steps are still the same. Any questions? We got that copied down? All right. This next example should be a bit of a review as well. We did a little bit of this on Tuesday and yesterday. So I want to write this equation in slope-intercept form. It is not given to me in slope-intercept form, right? So what do you think I got to do? I need to get y by itself, right? So the first step I need to do is subtract that 2x from both sides. So I've got 2x plus 4y equals 12. I'm just copying the original equation over here. And then we said that we need to subtract 2x from both sides. Alright, so when I do that, these cancel each other out, leaving me with 4y on the left-hand side. And then how do I need to write that on the right? Abby?
2x plus 12.
Negative 2x, right? Negative 2x plus 12. Remember, I want to keep that x term first because I'm looking at slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So you want your x term first. What's next, Casey?
You would have to divide 4 by both sides.
Okay, divide both sides by 4 because we want y by itself. So if I'm dividing both sides by 4, remember that means I have to divide negative 2x by 4 and 12 by 4. So both of those terms, dividing by 4. So my 4's cancel over here, leaving me with y. And then what's negative 2 divided by 4? Negative 2 divided by 4. What? Speak up. Negative 2x? All we're doing is simplifying that. Negative 2 or 4. Andrew.
So if you're dividing negative 2 by 4, you get negative 1/5.
Okay, so as a fraction, negative 1/2. All you're doing is simplifying that. Negative 2 or 4. Remember, we want slope in fraction form. So just simplify negative 2 over 4. And then what's 12 divided by 4? 3. Am I done? Is that slope-intercept form? Yeah. So that's my final equation. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3. Questions on that example? Good? All right, last one. We got a word problem. So it says that water bottle flipping has become very popular. Joey has already landed 25 bottles, and he will flip bottles until he lands 3 more each day. Okay. So first of all, somebody tell me how I can write 3 more each day. Casey. Ben. 3x. Good. And then I know that he has already landed 25. So using those 2 pieces of information, how do you think I can write an equation in slope-intercept form? Mari. Yep. Easy as that. Y equals 3x plus 25. And that's all we got to do there. Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right, so don't put this away. We need to make some changes on our homework down here. Okay. Your homework is still page 450, but change this from numbers 1 through 10. How'd you know that? I know. And numbers 14 through 17. Okay.
Wait, what?
Numbers 1 through 10, and then 14 through 17. Okay. All right, any questions on any of these examples? Maybe. Yes, that's all you're doing for homework. So you're not graphing any equations, so you can use regular paper today. You don't have to use graph paper. So you've got the rest of class